Understand the DNA replication fork with the story of Cinderella. Cinderella didn't have a dress for the ball. Not to worry, the birds and the mice worked together to make a beautiful dress for their dear friend. With all that thread being pulled, there must have been some knots along the way. Snip, snip, the mice cut the thread to relieve the tension. Gyrase does the same thing to the knotted DNA. Oh, but after Cinderella had swirled and spun in her new dress, her stepsisters got jealous and tore it all to pieces. They are like the helicase that comes and tears apart the hydrogen bonds between the two strands of DNA. The cruelty didn't stop there. Later on in the story, the evil stepmother locks Cinderella in her room to keep her away from her beloved prince. The single-stranded binding proteins do the same thing. They lock each DNA strand in place so that they cannot reconnect. With a heavy heart, Cinderella begins to cry. Not to worry, though. With a bibbidi-bobbidi-boo, her fairy godmother turns the torn dress into a ball gown. But this magic won't last forever. At midnight, everything will start to go back to normal. The fairy godmother is like the enzyme primase that puts RNA primer onto the separated strands. The RNA primer is where everything will start to be transformed, just like the stroke of the clock at midnight. Cinderella goes to the ball, but suddenly, bong, 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 the clock strikes 12, hitting the RNA primer. With that, Cinderella flees from the ball without stopping, just as DNA pull 3 synthesizes DNA all the way down the leading strand without stopping. Cinderella barely makes it outside the ball before her carriage turns back into a pumpkin, her dress back into rags. This is like DNA pull 1 changing the RNA primers into DNA. The prince, who is madly in love, is determined to find her. He is lagging behind her, though, which is why he's on the lagging strand. Taking a glass slipper that Cinderella left behind, he must stop at every maiden's house to see if the shoe fits. This is just like the DNA pull-3 that must replicate the DNA in small Okazaki fragments on the lagging strand, stopping then going, stopping then going. At last, the prince finds the beloved Cinderella, and the two seal their love with a kiss, just as ligase seals the Okazaki fragments together, creating one continuous strand. And they all lived happily ever after. The end.